phones, Babylons can't crack the code.
Recently on Twitter, No Context College Football posted a tweet that said predict a wild upset in non-conference play. I'll start South Dakota State beats Iowa. In today's video, the topic is going to be very similar to that tweet, as I'm going to be talking about upsets that could potentially happen that are wild and would shake the college football world in 2022 in non-conference play. Before I move on with the video, remember to smash that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Now let's get into it. The first game I'm going to be talking about in today's video takes place on September 17th, and that's USC versus Fresno State. USC is favored by the ESPN Power Index by 80%. When looking at this game on paper, a lot of people are going to expect USC to win this game and potentially win it quite easily, even by a couple scores or more. As USC, they got more talent on their roster, and they have all around probably a better coaching staff, or at least one that is more known than Fresno State's. However, I feel like Fresno State, they can't be slept on, as this could be an early trap game for the Trojans. Fresno State, they had a good year last year as a 10-win team. In 2021, they went 10-3 and were one of the better teams in the Mountain West Conference. And they're returning a lot of their key pieces from that 21 squad to 2022, as they have some of the best returning production in college football, returning 78% of their production from last year's team to this year's team. When looking at Lincoln Riley's track record at Oklahoma, in some of his earlier games as a coach in seasons, he did have some times where he struggled against opponents that they were supposed to beat quite handily at home, like K-State, Iowa State, even TCU a couple times. Now, I'm not saying this is going to happen at USC versus Fresno State, but I'm saying there's a possibility, as this Fresno State team is good. I'm also not saying that this upset is going to happen, but if it does happen, this is going to shake the college football world, as this would be an early loss for USC, a team that some people expect to make a run for the Pac-12 and potentially may even make a run for the college football playoff. And if they lose a game to Fresno State, a group of 5 team this early in the season, their chances at the playoffs are going to be very slim to none. Going on to the next game, taking place on September 10th, Eastern Washington at Oregon. Oregon is favored to win this game 97%. When talking about Eastern Washington, they are an FCS opponent. However, they're not one of these FCS opponents that are one of the worst teams on the FCS level that you're going to easily hang up 84 on them, and you may not even give up any points. Eastern Washington is one of the better FCS teams, especially these last few years or even decade at that. As Eastern Washington, they have a good football tradition there, especially these past years, and they have players on their team that can make plays. When bringing it back to Oregon, Oregon is expected to be one of the better teams in college football this season. Now, I do expect them to win this game, and to win this game by quite a bit. However, you do have to point out the fact that this is going to be an earlier game in the earlier part of the season for this entirely new Oregon team. I'm not talking about the roster as much, as they do have some returning talent that I think is very good. I'm talking about as a staff as a whole. As, yeah, Oregon, they have a first-time head coach in Dan Lanning, and they have pretty much an entirely new coaching staff. And this is an early game, and I do believe there's something in Oregon's schedule that will bode well for this game, and that's having to play a tougher opponent first, week 1 versus Georgia. So yeah, Oregon, I feel like they're going to bode well in this game, more than likely, but this is just a wild scenario that if it did happen, it would completely shake the college football world, as anytime an FCS opponent really beats an FBS opponent, it really does make the news. On to this next game, it is UTSA at Texas on September 17th. Texas is favored to win this game 92%. When taking a look at UTSA, UTSA is coming off their best season in program history, in which in 2021 they went 12-2. And this UTSA team is trying to repeat everything they did in 2021 and more for the 2022 season. And honestly, rightfully so. UTSA has every right to be confident heading into 2022. Coming off a strong 21 season and returning a lot of their key pieces from that squad, why not be hopeful? When people really take a look at this game, It's not one where they necessarily think Texas is going to be upset, but it's kind of one where they think it could be a good game. Texas is kind of a wild card team heading into 2022, coming off a disappointing 5-7 record in 2021. However, they are bringing in a lot more talent into 2022, and it will be year 2 under this new staff. And it seems like they're a little bit more hopeful for 2022, especially with new quarterback 1, Quinn Ewers. Now let's get back to looking at this game more. This is a game that, Texas is favored heavily, and they are home. However, the week before this game, Texas has their biggest test of the season as they play Alabama. Now, that game's going to go one of two ways for Texas versus Alabama. They either surprise some people and keep that game close, or they get completely blown out the water by a very good Alabama squad that's more than likely going to be in the national title game. Of course, a bigger and harder game is going to happen before the UTSA one. However, this is a game that Texas cannot overlook, as UTSA, they're not a bad team. And if Texas really takes care of business, this could be a similar game of when in 2021 early on, Texas did beat Louisiana. Sticking with Texas, the next game I'm going to be talking about is Alabama at Texas. Alabama is favored to win this game 75%. When looking at this game that's going to be played on September 10th, it's one where a lot of fans and analysts think Alabama is going to walk into Austin and just play with their food and destroy Texas on their own home field. And you can't really blame them, as Alabama is expected to be, the best team in college football. They're number 1 heading into the season, and Texas is coming off a 5-7 campaign and is throwing out someone who is going to be starting his second game on the college level. I'll admit, I do believe Alabama is going to win this game. However, looking at the topic of today's video, talking about wild college football upsets that would shake the college football world, you have to include this one. As, if Texas does win this game, it's probably going to be the biggest upset of the entire season, unless some top college football team loses to some bad FCS team, but that's more than likely not going to happen. And of course, this probably won't even happen either, but if it does, it's going to be the biggest upset in college football. Alabama, everyone's expecting them to be in the national title, win the SEC, and all of that. Texas, it's not necessarily the same, as a lot of people don't expect them to be in the Big 12 championship game and kind of expect them to be an 8-9 win team. If they win this game, that could build up a lot of momentum for not only the rest of the season, but build on more hype for Texas football throughout the year. On to the final game of today's video. It's one that I think is one of the most under the radar Week 1 games. On September 3rd, North Carolina at Appalachian State. North Carolina is favored by 62%. To me, this game is very intriguing. As Appalachian State, everyone knows they're a very hard-fighting team, and they're a team that's been one of the best Group of 5 teams and one of the best Sun Belt teams over the past decade or so. And this team, they've gone in non-conference games against Power 5 opponents and have put up a real fight. In this game, it's going to be played at Appalachian State on their home turf, a field where Appalachian State has a lot of success. Now, yes, North Carolina, they're expected to win this game. This game is Week 1. And North Carolina, they're going to be throwing out a starting quarterback that has never started a game for the Tar Heels before. I'm not saying that North Carolina is going to lose this game, but when looking at it as an upset side of things, this would be a very big upset to start off the college football season, as it is a Week 1 game, and if Appalachian State wins this game, it's more than likely going to be their best/most known win of the entire season. Yes, they have some big games on their schedule, but more than likely, if they pull this one off, it could start off for a lot of momentum to start off 2022 and really turn some heads. To close off this video, I want to say that I'm not necessarily saying any of these games are going to have upsets in them. Could there be one? Yes. Could there be none? Also yes. It's unknown. The games have not been played yet as of the recording of this video. You can come back a few weeks later and see what happens and comment back on the video. But I'm really just making this video for fun and just saying if these upsets, if any of them happen at all, would be very wild and would shake up college football in some way or another. Well guys, if you made it this far in the video, drop something down in the comment section below. What are some other big non-conference games that would be wild and or upsets that would shake the college football world to start off 2022? Also, can't forget, remember to smash that like button, turn on those post notifications, and subscribe if you haven't already. B. Kelly, out.